On day 1, I spawned in on what seemed like a normal Minecraft world. Oh! Almost our normal Minecraft world. With the fear of that scream, I got wood, made tools, got stone, made more tools, and found a menu for the Bleach mod, where I became a human. And since ICHIGO starts as a human, becomes a Soul Reaper, and so on, this was perfect. I killed some sheep and began cooking it for that sweet mutton, so now food was served. Bloody hell, I'm not gonna cook, you know. Now the first Bleach related item we had to make was called a shikai, a Japanese sword made out of bamboo typically used for competition, not hollow slaying. I mean, it's fine. Anyway, to make this sword, we were gonna need sugar canes, and finding this took me way too long. I can't find a single sugar... Oh, okay. I've angered some gods. Anyway, I made my very first shikai and prepared to have a nice sleep out in the rain until... Sound again, dude. I don't even... There's nothing there, there's literally nothing there. So to be able to actually see hollows, your base stat on the Bleach mod has to be 30. And to get that, you had to kill everything. Which was fine by me. And eventually, I had reached base stat 34. At the cost of the extinction of 80% of humanity. Animals. I soon came across a teen just stood around. These are called holes, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this one was... off. Plan 1, make a fishing rod to see if it retaliates. Plan 2, craft a bow in 4 hours and take a shot right to the side of their head. He is ugly, man. Oh my god. 1, 2, 3. I wasn't too bad, you know. It also dropped Ryatsu, but at this point I didn't know what its use was, though more importantly a bunch of hollows began rushing me, but luckily due to the block feature of these swords, and my prowess as swordsman, I found most of these fights pretty easy. But it surprised me how many different types of hollows I was seeing, like this spider one here who gave me the vibe of the spider from the slime mod. Parrying is so OP, oh my god. Not happy with me, man, oh my god. I ran across some random house in the wild and decided to check it out. I had a chest with really random stuff like leggings and seeds, as well as the stats book. I'm not a nerd, so I didn't read it. I went down to what seemed to be a basement, and a large one at that. I didn't find much down here and nothing was that interesting, just potions, mobs, and random items if you find that interesting at all. After a while I left the basement and came across 2 holes at a village, who didn't seem to be angry ones who turned into a big behemoth gorilla, so you know, we'll take that. Later on I found a hollow chasing a hole, so as I'm a wannabe Soul Reaper right now, I decided to take down this hollow, though I wasn't convinced this wasn't a plan to catch unsuspecting people. I'm a smart guy, you know. I only just realized, and by only just realized I mean while I'm doing this voiceover, what do you think is the main difference between good holes and imposter holes? That's right, they're eye colors. And the massive soul chain hanging out their chest. I didn't notice this, not even once. Anyway, the village has some good loot, meaning I managed to stay away from mining for a while longer. And then, to release some steam, I beat up a baby zombie outside the back of a house. I ended up finding another imposter and shot an arrow in its ear, but the Grand Fisher had backup, a golem hollow. This hollow joined for the infamous 2v1, but this was no big deal. Turns out I can throw you in the air and burn you alive. This, on top of having to block 2 hollows while also trying to parry them, was not an easy task. But as a main character does, I pulled it off, and began what I'll call from now on a hollow hunt, and began spending the night hunting hollows. The first thing that happened on this hunt was my shikai breaking. I had enough for a spare and took down this spider which dropped its mask upon its death. I tried to wear it, but I just couldn't. I believe at this point I was still just too weak. I then found a blaze hollow, another new type of hollow which gave me slowness if I was hit by it, but it wasn't immune to my parry strategy. Then I found some dark hollow. Kidding, it was the local ender gang. I survived the gang encounter and started fighting a dog and an angry bee. My night overall wasn't going too great, and to make things just a tad bit worse, my shikai broke again. I carried on throwing hands with this dog, while a member of the Ender Gang came freaking out all over the place. Dude, who have I angered, man? The gods are so mad. Turns out there's also a bat hollow as well. These types of hollows are the worst, since they're the fastest and can jump behind your block if you mess up even once. But I managed to take both hollows down anyway, and came across my last hollow of the night, the Stalker hollow. Definitely the coolest looking hollow so far, but taken down with ease. I came across a village and decided I'd build a place. I chose to build one of those like floor circular houses you may have seen before. I don't really build that often, so I'm pretty bad honestly, so you know, don't judge me too harshly. I I found this book which had like a lot of words, so I'll explain it to you later. Anyway, I prepared for another hollow hunt and took in the mistake that was my build. A lot of this 100 days was just these hollow hunts. To progress in this mod, everything eventually just ties back to taking down hollows. But what these hollow hunts did do for me was turn me into what I'm going to call the Shinai Shinigami, because with just a bamboo training stick, I was taking down hollows. My potential was top tier. But Shinais break easily, so I made a tiny pond to grow sugar canes until I had a proper weapon. I then got back to a hollow hunt. I was definitely getting a bit too good at fighting hollows, but I did come across an actual Shinigami, and you could say my inner Goku came out as the first thing I wanted to do was test my strength against the real thing. I parried this guy to oblivion, ICHIGO design. I can't believe he's an actual sword. Anyway, I fought another Golem hollow, and so far this was my toughest fight, mostly because this witch poisoned and weakened me heavily, which made his fire attacks nearly kill me multiple times. But eventually, I was able to take down the Golem hollow and get his mask. I went home and looked at how to make Shinigami clothing. Turns out I need to kill even more hollows, so that any breaks, I went back on yet another hollow hunt. My first one being another imposter Grand Fisher. And at this point, my ability to parry almost any attack was top tier. But I got bored of the grind, decided to take a night off with hollow hunts. In the morning, I threw together an item called a hollow bait. If you've seen Bleach, then you would know what this does, and the name kinda gives it away anyway. So I took a look at my stats and thought, maybe I was getting a bit ahead of myself and overconfident, so I put the bait away for now. I went out on another hollow hunt, and what you might notice is that at the top right of my screen, I now have a mini-map. And what this is what we're gonna call the Denrishinki, or Divine Messenger Machine in English. This is what Rukia uses to locate nearby hollows, and this is what we're going to use as we have no actual way to sense hollows. I could also set a waypoint for my home using Divine Messenger, so it's actually like the Denrishinki 2.0 if you think about it. But this thing was very useful, as I could see hollows, well, yeah, I couldn't see. Like this wasp, for example, hiding behind a tree, maybe trying to get this sneaky ambush on me. And more obviously, this badger hollow underground, which my Divine Messenger picked up, meaning I could hunt everything and anything, no matter where they were hiding. Eventually, I hunted a few more hollows near the end of the night and found myself having a soul chain hang out of my chest. According to the book, I need to right-click a Reiatsu block, but that didn't do anything. It's not working, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. Though after reading the book again, basically, whilst as a human, I must right-click a Reiatsu block with a base stat of 100 or more. We already knew this, though it doesn't say this, but I'm 99% certain I also have to be wearing a Shinigami clothing, whether that be academy gear or a regular set of clothing. However, if I die with this soul chain, I'd lose my chance of becoming a Soul Reaper and become a whole, essentially a dead man. So I went hunting more hollows for my Reiatsu, as that's a material used in all Shinigami clothing, and due to my fear of running out of time and the fact I didn't have enough materials, I ended up making a female set of Shinigami Academy gear. But luckily for me, this was enough and I had officially become a Shinigami with my very own Zanpakuto. The next part was to name my Zanpakuto. To do this, I needed an anvil, and so I went mining for iron. And while I had gotten my iron, I also found some dungeon that looked like it'd been ripped straight out of another dimension. This place had some pretty good stuff, like nearby diamond ore, chests with really good loot, such as armor, potions, and special arrows I could use. There was a lot of mobs. Dude, why is there so many? Oh my god. I eventually made it back to the surface and back to my home, and began smelting all this iron from my anvil. This room must be like absolutely boiling, man. I crafted the anvil and tried thinking of a name. And I chose Ukinagashi, I think it's pronounced anyway, which according to Google Translate means parried in Japanese. Realistically, I should have named it Zangetsu, but I was excited and I changed it later on, so spare me your comments. Anyway, I got some music ready since it was time to set down my hollow bait and fight the biggest group of hollows I've ever fought. Where are they? These hollows literally fell from the sky, just like the anime I suppose, which shouldn't be a surprise. That was pretty cool. But this took ages to do, so with the power of editing, I'll speed through this and tell you what happens. Basically, waves of hollows come down from the sky and you have to kill every single hollow that falls basically. It's a great way to get Reiatsu and Hollow Mask honestly. And you level up a ton from this, so it wasn't too bad. But if hollows attacked in a group, it was the worst. But after handling these, eventually, the biggest hollow in the mod, the Menace Grande appears. Oh my god. Where did he come from? Jesus Christ. I decided I wanted to make a hollow tomb, and for this I needed a mask shard made from a mask and a book which I could legally rob from the local library. Why did you come out the window, dude? Just come out the front. I made the tomb and it was confusing, but I'll explain. Basically, to unlock what my goal is now, to unlock my first release, Shikai, I needed certain elements. This book shows what elements are given and taken depending on the holo, so basically it's a hunting list. So I went on a holo hunt and found an actual hole, which I could actually send to the Soul Society due to the fact I was an official Soul Reaper now. And then I slaughtered a nearby holo who was a tree away from getting this hole, so now I really felt like a Soul Reaper. I also realized my Denrei Shinki 2.0 was so much better since I could see holes on the map. I'm pretty sure Rukia can't do this. At least, I think so. What you're looking at here is the craft for Ichigo's Vasta Lorde mask, something we'll be getting to at a later date. I found another Shinigami out and about, and my inner Goku was still lingering, so yes, I fought it, and yes, their skills are still extremely subpar of my own, and soon enough I'd be captain level and I'd surpass it easily. But captains seem to be a rare spawn, since I hadn't seen one at all. Also, for the stat nerds, here's my current stats. Anyway, I renamed my sword to Zangetsu and decided to focus on getting my light and dark element both above 200. And so I went on a killing spree which took absolutely ages, and eventually I managed to get what I wanted for my elements. And now I had exactly what I needed to release my Shikai, Zangetsu. And at this point I was officially and most definitely Kurosaki Ichigo. Releasing your Shikai burns a ton of Reiatsu over time, so you can't have it equipped at all times. But I did test it on a village house, since, yeah. With my new Shikai and newfound confidence, I crafted 6 holo baits and prepared for a holo war. I had some Shinigami assistance, since some were in the area, so it was like a 4v200 or something, which was pretty fair honestly. The biggest problem I found was that my Getsuka Tensho hit 1 holo at a time, which really wasn't ideal and made the whole war operation so much longer than it had to be. After taking down the Menos Grande, they dropped the Garganta portal, which was pretty ideal, and it got to the point where only the Menos Grande were left. These guys were pretty easy, and I even learned that my Getsuka Tensho had incredible range and could hit holos from really far away. Look at the range I have on this thing, this thing's insane. My god. After the war, I headed home and crafted a holo half mask, which did look very good on me in my opinion. You could also change your clothes type using Reiatsu blocks, it seemed. I honestly couldn't tell the difference, so I just ignored this feature. I then crafted some sandals, and now I was a proper looking Soul Reaper, not wearing female academy clothing. I began eating mask shards, since after having 20 holo stat points you become a Visored, which gives you the ability to equip your own holo mask for a set amount of seconds. I started at 1 second. I also took on a little side quest to get a horse. It was pretty hard and it kicked me from my own server, so... Horse, yeah, that's a bit too on the head, and I'll go with Hinu. Happy days. Alright. Look how absolutely snazzy my Hinu looks. Anyway, to use my Giganta portal and get to Hueco Mundo, I had to shift right click the portal. This took me to a dimension that looked like an unsaturated desert. I found a cave opening which led to a sea of holos, who I tried to attack, but... Unfortunately for me, my biggest enemy in this dimension was tremendous lag, and my server closed, meaning I really couldn't stay in Hueco Mundo. I went home and realized that all I had to do to complete my Vasta Lorde mask was get a Menos Grande mask, so I set up what would be the longest and most painful fight in this entire 100 days. I got to work using 70% of my resources to make not 6, not 12, but 16 holo baits to go off all at the same time. I was confident my stats wouldn't let me down, and this was gonna be easy. Basically, if you can't tell what my plan was, since I couldn't go to Hueco Mundo due to my server, I was going to connect the 2 worlds basically via portals and bring Hueco Mundo to me. And as I expected, in a matter of seconds, I was overrun by every single type of holo in this mod. Tons of Shinigamis came to my aid, but we were all taking on like 10-20 holos each, with the numbers only increasing as we took down more and more holos. Eventually, after a while, Hueco Mundo brought its lag to the overworld, which made this whole war even more unbearable. But I had no choice but to deal with it, since it was at my doorstep. But after an insane amount of time, I don't think you understand how long this took. I managed to take every single holo from these 16 holo baits and got my hands on a singular Menos Grande mask. Just one. But luckily for me, one was all I needed, and now I had finally made my Vasta Lorde mask. Which didn't look great, but later on it looks better. But this thing packed a punch and I could nearly one-shot holos. I also realized that I had unknowingly unlocked my Bankai, and that my Visored mask was the Vasta Lorde mask. On day 100, I tested my strength against the strongest people and person in this mod, an army of Soul Reapers and a Soul Reaper captain. On this day, I became the strongest. The Soul Reapers were no problem at all, and then it was time to fight the captain, who even the captain was not worth breaking a sweat over. I quickly threw together a few things in my home to make it look a little fancier, like these paper lanterns and stuff. I also put together this room to celebrate the progress I made over this 100 days. Going from my Shinai ways to my Soul Reaper days to finally having the powers of both Soul Reaper and Hollow.